Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. If you like this video, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories. And drop a comment down below if you have any suggestions. Now, let's get into it. The last shift. I've always been a night owl, so when the job listing for a late night inventory clerk at Halstead's Hardware popped up, I didn't hesitate. It was a small, family-owned store in a nowhere town called Dunmere, about an hour's drive from anything resembling civilization. The pay was decent, better than flipping burgers, and the hours suited me, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 5 nights a week. The owner, Mr. Halstead, was a weary old man with a permanent squint, like he was sizing you up for a coffin. He didn't ask many questions during the interview, just handed me a ring of keys and a clipboard and said, "Don't break anything, and don't go in the basement unless I tell you to." I figured it was standard small business eccentricity. I was wrong. The first few nights were uneventful. The store was sprawling, single-story building with high ceilings and rows of shelves packed with tools, paint cans, and gardening supplies. The fluorescent lights buzzed like dying insects, casting a sterile glow over everything. My job was simple: walk the aisles, check stock against the list on my clipboard, and note anything missing or damaged. Occasionally, I'd sweep the floors or restock shelves if a delivery had come in during the day. It was mindless, but I liked the solitude. No customers, no coworkers, just me, the hum of the lights, and the occasional skitter of a mouse on the walls. By the third night, I'd settled into a rhythm. I'd bought a thermos of coffee and a pair of earbuds to keep me company. The store had no Wi-Fi, and the radio in the break room only picked up static, so I relied on downloaded podcasts to pass the time. That night, I was halfway through an episode about unsolved mysteries when I heard it, a low, rhythmic thumping coming from the back of the store. I pulled out an earbud and listened. Thump, thump, thump. It was faint but steady, like someone tapping a hammer against a wall. I figured it was the pipes. Old building like this always had quirks, so I ignored it and kept working. The thumping didn't stop, though. If anything, it got louder as the night wore on, creeping into my awareness until I couldn't focus on anything else. I decided to investigate. Grabbing my flashlight, because the back of the store was a maze of shadows even with the overhead lights, I followed the sound. It led me past the plumbing aisle, beyond the racks of shovels and rakes, to a heavy steel door marked basement, authorized personnel only. The thumping was unmistakable now, reverberating through the metal like a heartbeat. I pressed my ear against the door, and the cold steel bit into my skin. Thump, thump, thump. It was random. It had a pattern, almost deliberate. Mr. Halstead's warning echoed in my head. Don't go in the basement unless I tell you to. I wasn't about to disobey on my third night, so I stepped back, chalking it up to a furnace or something equally mundane. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that the sound was aware somehow, like it knew I was listening. I finished my shift with one earbud out, the thumping a constant companion until I locked up at 6 a.m. and stumbled into the gray dawn. The next night I came prepared. I'd swapped my podcast for music, something upbeat to drown out any weird noises, and brought a second flashlight, just in case. The store felt different when I walked in, though I couldn't pinpoint why. The air was heavier, like the humidity had spiked, and there was a faint smell, metallic and sour, lingering near the registers. I checked the front of the store, ticking off items on my clipboard, but my eyes kept drifting toward the back, where that steel door waited. The thumping started earlier this time, around 11:30 p.m. It was louder too, insistent, like someone or something wanted my attention. I tried to ignore it, cranking up my music until the bass vibrated in my chest, but it was no use. The sound cut through everything, a slow, deliberate pulse that made my skin crawl. I told myself it was nothing, just an old building settling, but my hands shook as I marked off a row of screws. Then the lights flickered. It wasn't a full blackout, just a quick stutter, like a blink, but it stopped me cold. The fluorescence bled louder for a moment, then steadied. I'd glanced up, half expecting to see a bulb dying, but they all glowed as bright as ever. The thumping paused, and for a few seconds, the store was silent. Too silent. No mice, no creaking shelves, nothing. My breath caught in my throat, and I realized I was holding my flashlight like a weapon. When the thumping resumed, it wasn't coming from the basement anymore. It was closer, somewhere in the aisles. I swung my flashlight around and beamed slicing through the shadows, but the store looked empty. Just rows of tools and paint cans, glinting dully under the lights. I called out, my voice cracking, "Hello? Anyone there?" No answer, of course. I felt stupid immediately. Who'd be here at midnight? But the silence pressed against me, thick and suffocating. I forced myself to keep working, moving toward the hardware aisle where I'd last heard the sound. My sneakers squeaked on the linoleum, the only noise besides that relentless thump. As I rounded a corner, I saw it, a hammer, lying in the middle of the floor. It wasn't there earlier. I'd swept the aisle an hour ago. It was a claw hammer, the kind with a curved, pronged end for pulling nails. Its handle worn, smooth from years of use. I stared at it, my pulse hammering in my ears. The thumping stopped again, and the store went still. I bent down to pick it up, my fingers brushing the cold metal head. The moment I touched it, the lights flickered again, this time longer, plunging the store into darkness for a full 3 seconds. When they snapped back on, I wasn't alone. At the end of the aisle stood a figure. It was tall, too tall, its head brushing the top of the 7-foot shelves. It didn't move, didn't breathe, just stood there, a silhouette against the fluorescent glare. I couldn't make out its face. The light seemed to bend around it, leaving a void where features should have been. My mouth went dry, and the hammer slipped from my hand, clattering to the floor. The sound jolted me, and I blinked. When I looked again, the figure was gone. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I just stood there, my heart slamming against my ribs, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it. Sleep deprivation, I thought. Too much coffee, not enough rest. I grabbed the hammer, shoved it into a shelf, and bolted for the break room. It was a cramped space with a folding table, a microwave, and a sagging couch that smelled like mildew. I locked the door behind me and sat there, clutching my flashlight until my shift ended. The thumping didn't follow me, but I could still hear it in my head, a steady, mocking rhythm. I didn't tell Mr. Halstead about it when I saw him the next day. He came by at closing to drop off a delivery schedule, his squint sharper than usual. "You look like hell," he said, tossing me a set of invoices. I mumbled something about a late night and left it at that. What was I supposed to say? That his store was haunted? That I'd seen a shadow man playing hide-and-seek in the aisles? He'd fire me on the spot, and I needed the money. That night, I almost called in sick. Thought of going back made my stomach twist, but I couldn't afford to lose the gig. So, I went, armed with a thermos of black coffee and a pocket knife I dug out of my dresser. It wasn't much, but it made me feel less helpless. The store was the same as always. Buzzing lights, stale air, that faint metallic smell, but the tension was thicker, like the building was holding its breath. The thumping started right on cue, 11:30 p.m., back behind the basement door. I stayed away from it, focusing on the front aisle, but the sound followed me, growing louder, more erratic. Thump, 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 thump. It was like a code, a message I couldn't decipher. I kept my music off this time, listening for anything else. Footsteps, breathing, anything to prove I wasn't losing it. Around 2 a.m. I found another tool out of place. This time, it was a screwdriver, its blade chipped and stained with something dark, rust, I hoped, lying in the middle of the paint aisle. I didn't touch it. I just stared, my flashlight beam trembling until the lights flickered again. When they came back, the screwdriver was gone and the thumping stopped. I shouldn't have left. I know that now. But I didn't. I kept working, my nerves frayed to threads, jumping at every shadow. At 3:47 a.m., I heard a new sound, a low, guttural hum, like someone moaning through a closed mouth. It came from the back, near the basement door. I grabbed my flashlight and knife, my palms slick with sweat, and crept toward it. The hum grew louder, vibrating in my chest, and when I reached the door, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The door was ajar. Not wide open, just a crack, but enough to show a silver of darkness below. The humming poured out of it, thick and oily, wrapping around me like a fog. I didn't want to look, didn't want to know, but my hand moved on its own, pushing the door wider. The hinges groaned, and the darkness swallowed my flashlight beam, leaving only the hum and the thumping, now so loud it rattled my teeth. Stairs descended into the void, steep and narrow, their edges worn smooth. I took one step, then another, the air growing colder, heavier, until it felt like I was wading through water. The humming shifted, becoming words. Not English, not anything I recognize, just a string of syllables that burrowed into my skull. I reached the bottom, and my flashlight caught something, a shape, hunched and motionless in the center of the room. It wasn't human, not anymore. It was a mass of limbs and flesh, twisted and fused, its skin pale and glistening like wet clay. Tools, hammers, screwdrivers, saws jutted from it, embedded on its body like grotesque ornaments. Its head, if you call it that, was a lump of tissue with no eyes, no mouth, just a smooth expanse that pulsed with every thump. The humming came from it, a sound that wasn't sound, a vibration that clawed at my mind. I don't know how long I stood there staring. Seconds, minutes, didn't matter. The thing didn't move, didn't acknowledge me, but I felt it, see me. Its awareness pressing against my thoughts. My knife slipped from my hand, clattering on the concrete, and the sound broke the spell. I ran, stumbling up the stairs, slamming the door behind me. The humming stopped, but the thumping didn't. It chased me through the store, louder, faster, a drum roll of malice. I didn't finish my shift. I grabbed my keys, locked the front door, and drove home, the thumping echoing in my ears the whole way. I called Mr. Halstead the next morning, told him I quit, and hung up before he could ask why. He didn't call back. That was a week ago. I haven't slept more than an hour at a time since. The thumping follows me now. Not loud, not constant, but there, lurking at the edge of my hearing. I see tools out of the corner of my eye. Hammers on my kitchen counter, screwdrivers in my car, but when I look, they're gone. Last night, I woke up to the humming, faint and distant, coming from under my bed. I didn't look. I won't. I don't know what was in the basement. I don't know what it wanted. But I know it's not done with me. And I know that every night when the clock hits 11:30, the thumping starts again.